Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CashFly.
Today on Know-How,
your questions, our answers, plus a disco party.
Welcome to Know-How. It's a Twitch show where we build, bend, break, and upgrade. I am Father Robert Balacer.
I am Megan Maroney.
And for the next however many minutes it takes, we're gonna like can open the brain and then pour in the knowledge and then reseal it like that bad can of Campbell's soup. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's no good anymore. Sorry.
No, we're not. No brains will be injured during this show.
Yes, although I will say I was more of a fan of Spam than Campbell's soup.
I'm a Campbell's soup girl myself.
Huh, well, I mean, that's why we can't be friends.
So.
All right, but we can give you all the knowledge that you need to live in today's modern world. Now, Megan, we've got a special show today because, well, honestly, we promised we would do this more often, and it's been 4 months since we last did it. It's a full feedback show. That's right. We go into our Google Plus group, we go into the emails that you've sent us, and we see what questions we can answer. We've got a really good slate for you today. Now, we are going to get right into that. But first, I do want to call out people who actually showed up. We don't get this a lot because we're at a weird time slot on Thursday and Leo's not here. But we've got a group of fantastic people. They are healthcare professionals and engineers from Portland and Minnesota. We've got Dan, Annie, Matt, Jason, and Amber. And Oz, oh yes, right. Oznet is here. So if you know her in the chat room, that's where she is. She comes in every once in a while. She wanted to say hi before I went off to Rome. Now these people in front of us are collectively the most brilliant people on the planet. I mean, it's just the thing. So we've got an engineer, we've got a nurse, and then we've got anesthesiologists. So they can heal you, build your stuff, and then put you to sleep.
What I love about this group is they're traveling together, and only really Dan was a true fan, and his friends came with him here.
And I tell you, anyone who will put up with Twit for their friend, true friends.
You got a good group of friends.
True friends. Well, let's go and kick it off with some Linux knowledge. Now, I'm actually very happy that this ended up in the Google Plus group because we've got people who want to know what it means to install Linux on a laptop in the modern day. Megan, this was coming from Aaron Smith, and what did Aaron want?
Aaron said, I want my next laptop to be Linux only, but I'm trying to narrow down what I want beyond that. In your opinions, would it be better to buy a laptop that comes with Linux pre-installed, or should I not worry about that since wiping out the existing OS and replacing it with Debian, Ubuntu, etc. is not that difficult to do? I want to play more with editing video and playing games in a Linux environment using a mix of Wine and native Linux apps like OpenShot, so I'm thinking of getting a laptop with at least 16 gigs of RAM and a dedicated graphics card, but beyond that, I haven't weighed my options between price and power. Note, this will not be my main computer as I have a desktop at home that's quite nice.
Aaron, thank you for asking this question because this is one of these questions that you could re-ask every couple of months because the answer is continuously evolving. Now, a few things to note at the very beginning. First, he has prior Linux experience, and this does help because a lot of jumping into Linux is the fear. You think you're going to mess something up. If you've done it before, that's not an issue. Secondly, he has created dual boot machines before, which that's probably one of the trickiest things to do, especially if you're working with a Windows machine, or like a Windows 10 machine with UEFI, so you understand what you need to do to get a new operating system to work. Third, he wants gaming and video editing. Those were his primary uses. And fourth, he has a desktop, and the desktop is his primary computer. So I see this as more of a messing around with Linux option. With that being said, you know, Megan, I was thinking there was probably a show way back when where some people were giving knowledge about Linux because, you know, Linux was a hot topic in the tech community. And I think I found one. Hey, Alex, could you run this? I don't know if you've ever heard of the show before, but yeah, so we found this.
And I'm
going to do Linux as a free download next week, and so I'm getting ready.
All right.
So number one,
these are the 5 things you need to do to your system before you install it.
Megan?
Number one is
this
inventory.
Is baby
Take inventory
Who is that small child?
Excel Arc Advisor.
Wait, how long ago was this?
It a lot. Basically,
I am thinking it's 2002.
Everything that's going on inside of your
Rocking the Internet Explorer. Very nice.
Also, actually open up the box and check it out. We're taking out this box right now.
What version of that was XP?
And this is not a breaking box. Yeah, you just look inside. Now, the thing about the new
this is your
version,
5
the new
tips
installs of Linux,
for getting Linux installed on your machine, and your first one was taking your inventory.
But if you're installing Linux, it's a good idea that either you're running a server
I have to say,
or you're
though,
just curious. If you're
Martin
curious,
kind of looks the
you're
same.
going to want to know what's going inside.
Do you remember that?
No.
Okay.
Well, trust that it's me. Looks just like me.
I bring that up just because, I mean, people have been asking this question for a long, long time, which is, can I get Linux installed on my computer? Is it going to be difficult? Is everything going to work? Here's the thing. If you've got a computer that was built since 2010, you're fine. The one exception is if you've got a computer from a manufacturer like Sony or Lenovo that likes including proprietary stuff, hardware that's not found anywhere else, because driver support may not exist. But if you've got a Dell or an Acer or even a Toshiba, they're more likely than not using common parts, common network adapters, Wi-Fi adapters. All the subsystems are parts that have existed in other computers, and therefore the driver support should be just fine. But Megan, here's the thing. If you're going to buy a new laptop and you know you're going to install Linux, why wouldn't you just get one that has Linux pre-installed? I mean, you could go the other way, but it seems to make much more sense just to have it from the factory.
Well, why wouldn't you do anything? I mean, why wouldn't you? You make a lot of stuff that you can buy.
That's true.
Like for the fun.
It's for the fun. It's for the fun. But one of the nice things, one of the things I like to do is either go with a manufacturer that is pre-installing Linux, because then you are absolutely guaranteed that all the devices will be supported, or go with a vendor that's offering the same machine with both, say, Windows and Linux installations, because then you know, well, even if it doesn't have Linux installed, it does support Linux. That hardware is the same hardware, so therefore maybe I also get a copy of Windows. Unfortunately, with some of the big vendors, the price between buying it with Windows or with Linux doesn't change, even though Linux, is free. So I'm not so happy with that. Here are my thoughts about buying them. There's a couple of vendors I'd like to go with. The first one is this. If you could go to this, by and far, this is my favorite Linux computer. It's the Dell XPS 13. Now, it starts at $1,000 and then goes up depending on what kind of configuration that you want. It's going to have Ubuntu 16.04 LTS. It's going to have its 7th gen Intel i5, 8 gigabytes of memory, 256 gigabyte PCIe SSD, a 13.3-inch 1080p non-touch screen on the least expensive models, all the way up to 4K touch on the more expensive models. You're going to get about 22 hours of battery life, which is awesome. 2 USB 3.0 ports, 1 USB-C Thunderbolt port, an SD card reader, combo audio, and the thing weighs 2.7 pounds. I like this, especially since you can upgrade all the way to that 4K screen with an 8th gen Intel processor. Any of those configurations will support Linux, and because they're using Ubuntu LTS, it means you're guaranteed to have it updated as you go. You don't really have to worry about that part, which that's a plus on my side. On the downside, he did say that he wanted to do video editing and gaming. This is using the integrated graphics, which aren't bad. It's gone a long way, but it's definitely not a discrete part like a GeForce chip.
Well, my question is, if he has a desktop, which he says is quite nice, why would he want to do the gaming and the video editing on the Linux computer?
Yeah, some people just want the option, I think, really. I mean, for me, I'm the same way. My desktop is the powerhouse. It's got the big graphics card, it's got the massive amounts of memory and all the SSDs that I need to do the video editing. I can do video editing on my laptops, but that's just in a pinch when I have to travel. And I've done that. That's my setup. But some people kind of like it both ways. I get it. The other nice thing about that is that's a lot of machine for not that much money, and from a manufacturer that you know is going to be around and they are going to honor their warranties. The other manufacturer that I really like is actually System 76. I think Leo has one of these, actually. They have a lot of different options, a lot of different models. The one I'm actually kind of in love with right now, if you go to the link for this one, Alex, it's the Serval WS. Now, this thing is a monster. It's an 8th gen Intel i7, not an i5, It's an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 10, so it's a dedicated discrete graphics part. NVMe PCI SSD, 15 or 17-inch options, up to 64 gigabytes of memory, 3 USB 3.0 ports, 1 USB 2.0 port, 2 USB-C ports, which I really like, HDMI, Ethernet, a card reader, 2 display ports that you can do up to 4K monitors on. So you could technically have 3 4K monitors connected to this, and it should work just fine. Downside, it's a little bit more expensive. Instead of $1,000 and up, you're talking about $1,900 and up, so it's double the price. The other thing is it's a little heavy, you know, 8 to 11 pounds, including the power supply. So yeah, again, look through what you need. Both of these will work just fine. Both of these will run in Linux perfectly. It really depends on how much money you're willing to spend for the capabilities. Now, for you, if you were going to get a Linux laptop, I'm kind of betting you'd go with the Dell over the 7 systems. You don't like big, heavy laptops.
Well, you know, if I didn't have a chance to work out that day, then it would be just good to...
So you need 2?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, I got that. That's cool. We should contact them and say, hey, Megan would like to use yours as an exercise machine. Can you send us a couple of them?
Excellent.
Fantastic. A couple of closing thoughts on this. First, he mentioned video editing. OpenShot is what a lot of people are using for video editing on Linux. It's actually cross-platform. It will work on Linux, it will work on OS X, it will work on Windows. It's decent. It's actually very well developed. I would compare it, though, to like the old iMovie or to like Windows Movie Maker. It can do the basic things. It is multi-track. I mean, I don't want to put it down. You can make decent videos with the thing, but it's not a non-linear editor in the vein of Adobe Premiere or even Final Cut or Vegas. So if you're looking at more professional video editing, OpenShot's not going to do it for you. Now, if you just want to do photo editing, GIMP is great. I love, in fact, I've got GIMP on my computer, even though I've also got Photoshop, just because sometimes it works better. As far as gaming is concerned, you actually can get the Steam store on Linux, so that's not even a concern. You can game to your heart's content. So can you buy a pre-configured machine? Yes. Can you buy a machine that has Windows and install Linux on it? Yes. I think what we're trying to say is don't be afraid.
Yeah, we have Daniel Oberhaus has been a guest on Tech News Weekly a few times. He writes for Motherboard, and he is doing this amazing experiment for a month where he's not using any products from Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, Google.
Oh,
and I think maybe that's it. Am I missing one? I think there were 5. Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and one other company. And it's amazing because we couldn't really have them even on our show because we use Skype, but there's lots of open source video conferencing, but then you have to be running it in the Chrome browser, or you know, so it's crazy. So maybe he's just doing it, he just wants to be out of the tendrils of all those big 5 companies. Which is
and I mean, I get that because I have a similar machine just for that reason. Most of my work is done in Microsoft. I know most of your work is done in OS X. So I'm a Windows person, you're a Mac person. But it's up to you. I have a Linux machine just because it's important to know it and at least to be able to navigate around in Linux. But I'm not a Linux fanboy. I'm not a total adherent. I mean, if I have to work, I will almost never default to the Linux machine unless it's server work. So just know your tool and know what it's good for. All right. Let's go to the next one. This was actually about last week's show. So last week, Jason Howell and I showed people how they could build up their own streaming studio. Now, we did one where we did for under $300. This is sort of a continuation where we used a couple of other products so we could bring in outside video sources. So we showed them how they could, say, podcast, you know, have a 2-camera setup with a couple of Logitech webcams, maybe an external audio source. This was different. This is for those people who want to do something on Twitch. They want to show people them playing games, and they want to be able to do overlays. Well, in order to do that, we used these products. If you go to our overhead, these are the Elgato products. I love these things. They work incredibly well. If you want USB connected or PCIe connected, they've got something for everyone. But Ben Reese had a specific question about latency. Megan, what did Ben want?
Ben said, I enjoyed the last episode about live streaming, but I'm curious about the latency of the 3 different Elgato capture devices. Is there a difference in latency going from the Cam Link to the HD60 to the HD60 Pro? I've read that the HD60 Pro has almost no latency, but was curious about your experience. My use case isn't gaming, but live streaming the church service and sometimes sending the video feed to a projector. For live streaming, I'd rather not have to mess with audio delay manually to get audio video to match up. And speaking of audio delay, if the HD60S has a video delay, but also has analog input for audio, does that audio match the same delay? I'd be fine with some delay for live streaming if the audio is automatically going to match up. This is the first time I've seen the Stream Deck. Very cool, and the $150 price tag isn't terrible for what it does. But I couldn't help but wonder if that could be made DIY. Hack5 has arcade buttons mounted in their table to change camera angles, so I know it's possible. There's also the possibility of using a Raspberry Pi Zero, which can emulate an HID for input, and a USB network dongle for programming.
And by the way, that post goes on and is incredibly detailed. So check it out in our Google Plus group if you want to see exactly what Ben Reese is doing. But let me give you some of the short answers. There's a couple of questions here. There's actually 3. The first one, what is the difference in latency between the 3 different capture devices that we showed off last week? The second one is, do you need a delay adjustment for the 60S? And the third one is, can you DIY the Stream Deck? And this was the Stream Deck, sort of the user programmable device. You go to the overhead. This was my favorite part because it allowed me to set macros and switch between scenes, and these are all user assignable. So I can put my own graphics that represent what I want my switcher to do. Now let's start with the devices. So when you're talking about USB, there's always going to be delay. I'm sorry, if you ever have a vendor that says their USB device doesn't have any delay whatsoever, they're lying, because they're going through the USB bus, and the USB bus by definition is going to add a little bit of latency. So just know that. That's what you're signing up for. Now, in most cases, that's not going to be a huge problem. For these devices, like for example, this is the least expensive one. This was the Cam Link. The latency on this goes from about 1/10 of a second all the way up to a second, depending on whatever you're running. Because if you're loading down your machine, you're actually reducing the amount of power available for the USB bus, right? Same thing with this. This is also going through the USB bus, but the difference between that one and this one is this also has an audio in. So for example, if I had an external audio source, I could use that. Oh, by the way, that was a second question. We'll get to that in a bit. Now this, the HD60 Pro, this is a different kind of device because this is PCIe connected. It doesn't go through the USB bus. It goes through the PCIe bus, which has a direct connection. This is almost zero latency. In fact, I will say it's negligible latency. It might as well be zero latency. You can play video games off of this, even twitchy video games, and you could play off the monitor. I wouldn't do that with the USB devices. Maybe if it was casual gaming, but if it's one of those games where 1/4 of a second can mean the difference between life and death, or getting fragged or fragging someone else, then definitely go with the PCIe device. Now, as far as the latency of the 60S, this will delay the audio source just as the video source gets delayed. So you don't even have to worry about that. I mean, as long as it's coming in at the same time on this device, it will make sure that the encoded stream is all synced up. So, I mean, choose your poison. I use all 3 of these. I actually have 3 of these in my, my switching box using OBS. And that's what I'm going to be using in Rome. These I use when I'm on the go. So if I just need to get something into my laptop so I can do a quick stream, obviously I can't hook up a PCIe, so I'm going to be using USB. Know the limitations, test them a lot, and that will tell you which one you use, right? I mean, it's just like the Linux one. Know what the tool does, and just use it for what it's good for. Now this was the other part of the question. He wanted to know if I could DIY one of these things. And the answer is absolutely yes. We actually talked about this last week with Jason Howell. This is just a USB HID. This is an interface device, right? Now go ahead and go back to there you go. So stay on the overhead. I can very easily take something like an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi and make that button do something. Right, I can assign it because it looks just like a key. All I have to do is assign the key to do something. Here's the thing, though. You will not get the functionality of the Stream Deck, because what this will allow you to do is I can actually nest menus. So I could say, push one button and suddenly it will go to OBS. I push another button and now it's switching through XSplit. I push another button and it's set up for YouTube Live. I push, and all the menus down below will change to the appropriate icons. It's not doing it right now because I don't have any of that active. But that, I cannot easily homebrew. I mean, if I homebrewed that, it would cost way more than the $150 that I'm paying for the Stream Deck. The other thing I really like about this, I know this is going to sound petty, but these LCDs, the fact that I can put icons and pictures that mean something to me, it means it's more than just a button on a table. I actually have a visual representation of what that button can do, and that's actually kind of important. Right? I mean, Megan, you've done streaming. This is one of these things. Do you remember the Optimus keyboard, like maybe 15 years ago? It was one of these products that took forever to arrive to market. People never thought it was going to be made because it had individual screens and all the keys that were user assignable, and the thing cost $1,500, right? This is $150 all these years later, and this is so much more functional than that. I mean, honestly, $150 for this is kind of a miracle.
I mean, that's basically Alex's job over there. You can replace for $150.
Yeah,
How's that
so
feel,
I mean,
Alex?
this is Alex. We could replace Alex with this. We probably shouldn't say that while he's switching the show.
Yeah, I'll just stay on the overhead.
See, this is why you do not upset the TD. Now we're stuck on the. Okay, so shadow. Well, see, Alex, you're a wonderful person, and we could never replace you with a $150 device. Maybe $200.
He said that. I don't know if I agree with that. Did you just cut my mic?
He has all the power. All right, so let's go ahead and move on from that to something that's a little bit more disco. Yes. Yeah. Now, when we switch away, will be your time to bring this stuff up. I'm actually kind of excited because you know I am very easily entertained by shiny things. Shiny things, and this is definitely shiny. We've got a question here from Brad Thornton from Massachusetts. Now, Brad, I know you asked this question a year and a half ago, and I'm sorry we're just getting into it now, but hopefully it's still useful. And Brad wants to say, I love your LED projects, and I want to do something to add splash lights to my room at Boston College. Wonderful college. Unfortunately, I don't have access to a 3D printer. I can't solder in the residence halls, and I can't make any serious alterations to the walls without hefty fines. Is there something I can buy to get a controllable LED splash? I want something easy to set up and control. That's Brad. Again, thank you, Brad, for asking the question that we didn't answer until now. But Megan's got something precisely for that. Now, I understand I love dealing with LEDs, and maybe you just want to buy something that's controllable. So, Megan, what do you got? What's this bad mamma jamma you got here? Actually, you could bring down the house lights a little bit.
So you can really see what's going on there. This is the Nanoleaf starter panels. Let me try a different color so that you can really see what's going on here.
I think the problem is it's so bright, everything's going to look white.
Okay, let's try to dim it a little bit.
I love it. It's so oh, it's so
there
disco.
We go. This is the Nanoleaf starter kit. And yeah, you're right. It's too bright. There we go. I like what you're doing there, but that isn't how it's used.
Oh, okay.
This is a light panel set. This is the starter kit, the Rhythm Edition, which costs $229. I'll just say that right off the bat. It's not going to make your life more efficient. It's not going to make you have more time to do other stuff. It's
this will not save the whales, folks.
It's just going to impress your friends and family. So you can control it with your phone. Here is the app there. I'll show that. So I could do flames. And let me turn that down so you can see better, or I could do the forest theme if you wanted to have a little forest bath as they do in Japan. Inner Peace or Nemo. This is my favorite.
Megan?
Yes?
I was promised disco.
You were? Okay. So that's just the basic. Now we have the Rhythm Edition. Can you see this little panel in the over? This is the rhythm. This comes in and out, and this is a little bit extra. It can make your music go along with, your lights go along with your music. So, I think that is on. Let's play some tunes. He won a
I'm sorry,
Nobel
I was
Prize
coughing.
for this.
I was coughing.
Pulitzer Prize. So let me find a different one that is not a different song.
So Megan was screening music for her children, making sure it was okay to listen to.
This is the disco dance floor.
Now I can imagine an entire wall filled with this. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Can the lights go down even more to see it, or not? There we go.
Oh, there we go. Nice. Okay.
Thank you, Kendrick. Sometimes the words are appropriate. So it's not just music. I could talk. Hey, hey, hey. So it's just sound.
Oh, so it's not Bluetooth linked. It's just got a microphone here.
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Yes.
Now, the cool thing about this, I saw Nanoleaf at CES 3 years ago in the Sands Pavilion when they were just first starting up. And you got to remember the concept behind this is all modular. So you can actually disassemble this just by pulling at the modules. They've got little tabs, and then you can either plug in other modules or you could plug in like expansion modules like the audio thing. And then you can put this in different shapes.
The tabs come off too. So
yeah, the tabs come off. So the thing about this is it kind of rewards people who can think geometrically. You know, if you want to make a different kind of, let's see, where am I? There we go. So plug that in, and let's go crazy, Megan. Let's go nuts. Here, let's make a shape that wouldn't exist otherwise, because that's what we do. There we go.
I think I have 2 more panels too in here. The starter kit comes with 2 more panels.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Now, how much does the starter kit cost?
It's $229.
Okay, so it's a little on the pricey side. And here's the thing. I have this feeling that once you start doing this, you're going to want to keep, 3 more panels. You're going to want to keep adding. And that's kind of where they get you.
So you also, these can be mounted. They're not just, you can mount them on your wall. And you asked about, you were in a college dorm. And so it comes with these 3M mounting things that claim to have a clean removal. I guess, no, yeah, 3M mounting slips that are supposed to come, my experience with those is they come off pretty easily. So you could try mounting them in any way. And they have this augmented reality tool that will allow you to envision how they might look on your wall before, and that's pretty nice. So I did a full review of these on the Screensavers. You'll see that if you watch on Saturday for that show.
Wait, are we getting a preview?
You're getting a preview. I thought I'd take it up a notch for this one to show about the different ways you can control it. You can control it with your phone, as I showed you before. So I could just say, I'm not gonna say that I'm using HomeKit for this. Turn on my romantic scene.
Oh.
And scene.
And scene. So that's my romantic scene, or I could say, turn on my forest scene.
Oh, yeah.
Forest coming up.
Now I'm feeling like I'm a little Tweety bird.
Yeah.
I get it, I get it.
Turn on my Tatooine scene.
Wait, Tatooine?
Enabling Tatooine.
It's a desert.
Tatooine. How does Siri not know how to pronounce Tatooine? So you can also use IFTTT with this, if this then that. And so, you know, we have some guests here who are married, and perhaps you wouldn't just want to say, you know, turn on my romantic scene. Perhaps you'd want to do it privately on your phone just to get everyone in the romantic mood. What do you think, Dan? You might use this. So you can add, if you're familiar with IFTTT, it's just doing all kinds of control. Do you have an overhead so you can see my phone? There. Okay, so I'm gonna do this little button. This is an IFTTT button. So I say, turn this on, and then I can add the button to so I'm gonna show this, you can show it on your Apple Watch. So if you have an Apple Watch, you can just control that, or add it to the home screen. So all I do for that is just do the share button. Can you see that okay? And then add to home screen, and then add. So then if you're just holding your phone there, then you can just press the button. Did it not, oh, okay. Added it to the end here. Yeah, there's my button. So you want to get in the mood.
Yeah, so you could set it when I come home, do this, or when I get tweet, do this. Actually, I would use this to, like, when a tweet comes up on a specific subject, start changing the lights or change the light to a specific color. I love stuff like this. Now, I get it. This is crazy expensive, especially compared to the LEDs that we make on Know-How, but this is ready-made. I mean, this is, you just plug it in, put it on the wall, and turn it on.
Yeah, and I mean, crazy expensive for a toy, but like you would maybe spend that much money for art on your wall, wouldn't you? Like 220 if you were going to buy a painting of some kind.
I'm cheap. I'm really, really cheap.
You might buy that. So, and it doesn't just work with HomeKit. It works with your Amazon Alexa. It works with your Google Home, yes, it's expensive if you're just going to bring it out for the occasional party, but I really
and I actually kind of like the way that they made these. These actually are kind of nice.
Really easy to set up.
Nice.
Super easy to set up, and you can. They have a community where you can create your own designs and add them to the community, or you can have use other people's.
Okay,
designs.
I mean, I look. If I had the cash, I would get this. This is cool. This is very, very cool.
Yes, loquacious. Of course, good art costs a lot more than that. That's why I'm saying this is cheap. You know, if you compare it to, say, like
and you know what? Good art can't do disco. I tried. That's why I'm not allowed in the Louvre anymore.
Yeah. So this is the Nanoleaf, and they have all kinds of different. You can buy the light panels individually, or you can buy other things.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I hope that you add it to your dorm room. If you are still in your dorm room.
I'm pretty good. I think when he sent it to me, he was a junior, so he's probably graduated by now. But you know what? You could decorate your new room. Actually, he's probably moved it back in with his parents because that's sort of a trend. Never mind. All right, let's go and move on to something that's a bit more uplifting. We've got our Nanoleaf, but let's talk about networking. Specifically, we've got a question from Nolan T. about a networking vendor. Megan, what does Nolan want?
Have you had any experience with Ubiquiti equipment? I have been seeing several websites and YouTube videos about people using them for home networking. What are your thoughts, and what about all those Kitas out there?
Okay, well, Nolan, first of all, Ubiquiti is pretty awesome. I would use Ubiquiti without hesitation. Ubiquiti made a name for itself in the enterprise realm. Now, their thing was to give you an easy-to-use, controller-based solution. Now, what do I mean by controller-based? This is actually important. Most of the devices that you will buy for your home are sort of they're self-contained, right? All the smarts that they need are in the box. So your router, your AP, they're using just the controller power that they've got inside. A controller-based approach uses sort of thin clients, dumb APs, access points, and then it uses a central controller to decide how all of those APs are going to act. The advantage of doing it that way, it means that you do one setup, one provisioning just at the controller, and then all of the access points take their provisioning from that controller. It also means that you can do things like more easily roam from one access point to the next. Our audience is always talking about setting up multiple access points or multiple routers with the same SSID, and sometimes it doesn't hand off cleanly. Have you had that happen before? Where it's like the same SSID, but it will cut the connection for 3 or 4 seconds and then jump onto the next one.
Absolutely.
Right? You don't really get that with a controller-based network because you're going from one AP to the next, but it's the same network. The controller knows you're moving from one to the next, so it automatically routes your traffic to the right one. The other thing that it allows you to do is to do, say, remote offices much easier. If they're all using the same controller, it means that I can walk into an office in Boston, an office in New York, my office in California, and all of my devices will think that they're still connected to the same wireless network, right? So that's the advantages you get, at least some of the advantages that you get from an enterprise controller type network. The disadvantage is the fact that you have to have a controller. And most of us aren't going to want to install a box in our house to act as a controller. So Ubiquiti and some other enterprise-based companies came up with a solution, and that is, why not take the controller and put it in the cloud? So you don't actually have to have the box, you just have to buy the device, and then you use their service to provision all your gear. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ubiquiti is really, really good at that. And actually, I have a couple of pieces of Ubiquiti gear that I want to show off. I'm actually kind of excited to see what these can do because I like their concept. I like the hardware that they've made. They've been very, very good about knowing what consumers actually want versus, what the buzzwords are at the time. And this one is kind of new. They've had versions of it, but this is sort of the updated. If you go to the first link there, this is the Amplify HD Router and Teleport Kit. Now, it looks just like a router, and that's because it is. This is what it looks like. So this is actually a screen. It's a touch screen, so I can have easy access to all the settings. I've got 6 radios inside of this, 6 dual band radios, so I've got plenty of wireless power. Gigabit Ethernet, both on the LAN and on the WAN ports, as well as a USB port so I could plug in a hard drive or a printer, the sort of the basic stuff. 802.11 AC, this is Wave 2, so I can get some fantastic throughput on this. Automatic updates, and I actually just spoke about this with Paul and Mary Jo on Windows Weekly yesterday. The fact that the device from the get-go will automatically update itself means that you're never going to have one of those situations where, oh, I've forgotten to update my router for 8 months and now it's been owned. This is always going to have the latest firmware. I really, really like that. iOS and Android apps that allow you to see exactly what's going on your network, who's connected, how much bandwidth each person is taking, and you're going to like this, the ability to disable individual connections no matter where you are. So you could be at work and your kids are at home and you say, hey, you know what? I don't think there should be any YouTube right now. Bloop. Not that you would ever do that.
No, that is a really good feature. It's a feature on a lot of mesh networks, and I've definitely used it. I had this Ubiquiti for a while. Leo gave me his because he wasn't using it, and then he took it back. So I never got a chance to set it up. I use Eero, which is one of our sponsors, right. But it does look interesting, and again, it's nice. It sort of just blends in to the decor. It does. I
mean, obviously this is more iOS inspired than Android inspired, but it works well. However, $200 for a router like this, that's a bit pricey. For me, I would go with something like the Synology, which I really like, but that's more enterprisey. That's industrial. But that's not what you get for $200. You get this, including this. Now, this little innocuous looking device is called the Teleport. Now, you're going to set this up with the same application that you use to set up your router, but here's the cool thing. No matter where I go, anywhere in the world, as long as I have either a wired or a wireless connection, this will automatically VPN back to the router and give me access to my home network.
Wherever you go.
Wherever I go.
In the whole world.
In the whole, unless they're blocking VPNs like China. This is the VPN. I don't have to worry about installing a VPN client. I don't have to worry about any of the settings. I plug this in, and the minute it's connected, it will connect back to this, and I have access to my home network. So it means I can access my files. It means I can look at what's going on in my network. It means I can look at my cameras. It also means if I'm using one of these streaming services, I can watch the TV I can watch at home. Which I kind of like, right? So that's really the new thing. I haven't been able to test this thing out yet, but I do want to take this with me the next time I go to Rome and just see if I can still access all the programming I could access.
That's amazing. For $200.
For $200.
That's less than the fancy lights. That's less than having a disco party.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you can do this. We've actually done this on Know How before. We've used a Raspberry Pi to make a VPN server, but just like the Nanoleaf, yeah, you could do it yourself, but this is a lot easier. You plug it in and you go.
What I also like about this is it kind of looks like a home security camera as well, which I've noticed that, like, in order, to get people to behave well, all you need to do is have them think there's a camera always recording them.
Yeah, except for the fact that when you're active, this actually shows you some numbers of like how much bandwidth. Actually, this is kind of cool. How much downstream bandwidth is being used and how much upstream bandwidth is being used. So you can immediately see, whoa, wait a minute, it's 4 in the morning. Why is someone downloading 400 megabytes a second? Well, okay, someone's watching something and they should be in bed, right? You can get that over your app too. Here's the other part that they sent me, and I'm actually, I'm more excited about this, but this is kind of cool. This is the Amplify the mesh point.
That
HD.
was the thing that I had that Leo took back.
Yeah. So this works best. I want to say it works best with Ubiquiti equipment because it uses the same app. So that always makes everything easier. But this is there's 2 radios in here, and they're going to work at 802.11 AC, dual band, so 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. We'll work with any router. So we'll work with third-party routers. But this bottom part is actually just the power supply. This whole thing is the unit. You plug this into the wall, and then you just position the antenna. And you use your app to say, this is the network I want to extend. And then we'll use one radio to talk to that network, and we'll use the other radio to rebroadcast, which is what you want. There are some mesh points out there, typically the lower cost ones, that will use the same radio. They do what's called time sharing. So it will listen to that network and then switch to the other network, and then listen to the network. The problem is you're having the amount of bandwidth that you can have. This, because I've got dual radios, means it's full speed. The other cool thing about this is it's actually inexpensive. If you go to the link for this, it's about $100. You can actually get them down to about 80. And both of these are out of stock all the time, which tells you there's a little bit of demand for them. So yeah, do I like Ubiquiti? Yes, I do. And I can wholeheartedly endorse them. And I'm going to give these things a thorough going over just to make sure that they pass muster, because they are relatively new. These are the new versions of their hardware, and I want to make sure they're as good as everything that's come before them. So you need to get that thing back from Leo.
I do.
Although the Eero is also really good.
Yeah, or I'll just take that when you're done with it.
Aww. Fine, but I'm taking the Nanoleaf because I need disco time.
Okay.
All right. Let's do another one. We've got something from Jay Miller, who's got a problem with lots of cameras. And what does Jay Miller want, Megan?
I am about to install up to 16 IP cameras in and around my house. These cameras are going to be throwing a lot of data around my network. This got me thinking how my network was set up and how I could improve it and keep it running fast. I'm a gamer, and I use Plex to stream video to the Rokus I have around my home, so I have high demands on my network. Since I know just enough to be dangerous, I would like to get a conversation going from the talented people here on the best way to go about setting up secure, high-speed Ethernet networks, securely connecting them to your ISP, what equipment will do the job for the least amount of money, and of course, reliability.
Now, Jay Miller, we've actually covered this a couple of different ways, but I want to give you the basics. Go to episode 297 of Know-How, and we actually do an in-depth discussion of switches and which ones you should get. So that's the discussion on what kind of hardware I should get. But let's talk about the overview, because I think this is something that everyone should be reminded of. You're talking about 16 IP cameras, and you also stream Roku off of a home network storage box. Okay, there's a few things you need to know about that. First, 16 cameras will absolutely 100% oversaturate your network. You will overload it, it's oversubscribed, there's way too much bandwidth going through, and if that's on the same switch as your Roku, you're going to get horrible performance on your Roku, because I'm assuming that with the 16 network cameras, you've got streams going into your DVR at all times. Well, if you've got streams going into your DVR at all times, it means that you've got that bandwidth being used at all times. Here's how you fix that. So what you want to do is you want to think intelligently about how you plan your network, because switches are not hubs. In the old day, when you wanted to build a network, you used a hub, which was also called a repeater, which meant that every frame it received, it just duplicated out to every port. We don't use those anymore because they're wasteful, and eventually you get to a point where all you have is a bunch of devices screaming on the network and nobody's listening. We now use switches. And switches learn which device is connected to which port. And so when you have traffic going from one device to the next, it only routes that traffic and it leaves all the other ports out of it. So you need to use that to your advantage, and this is how we're going to do it. So let's say that this is the switch that's connected. I probably picked a really, really bad color. Let me pick another color, Megan, because red evidently does not show up really well on our cameras. You need to try to isolate that those cameras, from everything else that's going on in the network. So let's say I've got my 16 cameras, and there we go. If each one of these can generate 1 megabyte per second of traffic, I guarantee you, you're going to oversubscribe it, especially since all of that traffic is going to have to come out of one of those ports. Now, if I've got my Roku or my NAS box on this switch, those cameras are going to be competing with that NAS box, with that Roku, for bandwidth. So what I need to do is put everything on this switch that those cameras are going to talk to. So I will have it connected to my NAS. So if my NAS is recording all those cameras, all of that traffic is now isolated. It's contained within that switch. I can then connect this to a secondary switch, And maybe this is where I have my storage of all my movies and such. This is where I have my Roku. Maybe this is where I have my, what other devices do you have? This is where you have your Nanoleaf. And because none of the devices that the IP cameras need to talk to, like the NAS, are on this switch, that traffic will never make it over here. So I can effectively make sure that the NASs and the IP cameras are not affecting the regular usage of my network. So you're going to need a couple of switches. Just think of it that way. Every time you have a nexus of devices that need to continuously talk with one another, I can contain that traffic by moving it off of a switch so that that device never interferes with the traffic of any of the other devices on the network. Does that make sense as an overview?
Yes, but I have a better solution, which was my original solution. Just have the cameras not connected to anything, and it's just the idea that we're being constantly watched that is scary. Also, Jay Miller, what are you doing in your house that you need 16 cameras? I mean, do you have a house full of diamonds, or you have pesky kids? What is it? Putting on a reality show, perhaps?
Yeah. I like cameras. Cameras are fun. Actually, we've got a question from Eric Duckman, who wants to know if they're Wi-Fi cameras. I hope not. 16 Wi-Fi cameras would be a disaster. If you have a device that you need to have on the network at all times, don't go Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is notorious for breaking down when you have a lot of traffic. So wire them up. Now, again, if you want to know exactly what we did here, go to episode 279. It will show you how a switch works, and it will give you a much better diagram for how you're going to set it up. All right?
Okay.
Now, Megan, I wanted to do something fun. Now, we've been having fun.
That wasn't fun?
Well, I mean, that was kind of fun, but my kind of fun is possibility of disaster.
Okay.
Okay, because we're surrounded by a lot of electronics, right? Uh-huh. Okay, so I'm thinking this is probably the best time to take a look at a little device that we received. This is called the Norshire. It looks like a Roomba. Yeah, actually, that's a really good idea. It looks like a Roomba. It totally isn't. So this is envisioned as an accessory for your car. It's currently in Indiegogo, and actually, if you go to that link, Alex, you see the Indiegogo campaign. They've basically got it funded. I mean, this thing is kind of cool. It's a battery bank, and I know what you're saying. Well, Padre, we've seen battery banks before. Yes, you have. But it's also a car washer.
A pressure washer
it's
for your car?
It's a pressure washer.
But wouldn't it like scrape the paint?
No. Let me show you. Okay, go to the overhead here. So this is what they sent me. They sent me this, this is a battery bank. That's why it's got USB power in the back here. But it's also got the high power port, so I can jump start if I need to. I've got these leads, which will allow me to jump start up to like a 6-cylinder, 6-liter engine. I mean, this is pretty good. It's designed to just sit in the back of your car. It's got a long life lithium polymer battery. And then I've got all these other attachments. And the reason why I have all these other attachments is because this is actually a pressure washer. Now, you're going to have to help me with this, Megan. Okay. I could just take one of those big 2-liter bottles of water and screw it into the top. And then I have 2 liters of water. But they set this is part of the kit. This is sort of a hose, so I can tap any water reservoir that might be nearby. So even if I don't have a hose, and then I've got this is sort of the pressure washer attachment. So this connects here. So you could like stick it in a stagnant pond or something? Yeah, well, if you really want that moldy pond smell, that would be excellent.
Have we warned our studio guests that they might be sitting in the splash zone?
No, we just did though. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Disclaimer, I hope you don't have anything expensive.
iPad up.
That will protect you. Yeah. All right, so and actually, I think Burke took my nozzle.
Oh no!
Dang it!
This isn't
Burke.
a nozzle.
Oh, I'll use this one. They actually did include a spray nozzle. I must have left it in the other room. But let me show you how this works. I hope, or this is going to be really, really messy. Burke came with a big old bucket of water. So
Stagnant water.
It's got a little filter on the end, so I'm not going to be clogging anything up. If you just want to hold that underwater a little bit. Okay, this could be really, really bad. Good thing we're not surrounded by, high power devices or anything. So turn it on.
The battery is normal. Double-click the button to start water pump.
So it's going to pressurize. Okay. There we go. So what I can do is, well, obviously.
Oh, sorry, I held it up.
It doesn't do water really well if it's not underwater. Now, normally I would have a nozzle on this so that it would actually be, a stream of water rather than just a bunch of stuff. It's also got attachments for the soap thing and the brush thing. This is actually kind of, I know this is not for you, but for a geek, this is something I would love to have in the back of my car.
Not for me.
You don't wash your car, do you? You take it to a car wash.
I do.
Yeah, if you've seen my car outside, you know why I need something like this. It's always dirty, and the ability to give it a quick power wash every once in a while, just get all the grime off of it, that actually appeals to me. Especially if it's a device I'm already gonna have. Your watch is waterproof, right?
Yes, my watch is waterproof. I can swim in it.
Sorry. Okay, let me stop. I'm being bad here. I have to relieve the pressure, otherwise it's gonna explode.
Oh, sorry.
Now, I would have read the manual, except the manual was in Mandarin Chinese, and I'm not very good at that. Oh, stop it.
So did you back this Kickstarter or Indiegogo project?
Maybe.
Okay.
Look, we have so many. Let me turn it off. We have so many batteries. You're cool now. We have so many batteries that we've shown off on this network. This is the first one that actually had a pressure washer in it. That's kind of cool. Yeah, the PSI seems kind of low, but that's just because I've got the wrong nozzle on this thing right now. The nozzle that I want is currently in the other office, but it is quick connect, so I can just move from one to the next to the next. Now they say it's a 4-in-1. It's really a 3-in-1. I don't think anyone's going to use this as a warning light. But the battery, the jump charger works really well, the battery bank works really well, and the pressure washer actually works really, really well. And for $100, this is just about the same price as the other jumpstart capable battery banks that we've played with, except I also have the ability to shoot liquid at things.
I like the idea of a multi-use object. It's like a need,
So are you going to get one of these?
I might back the project. Who knows?
Okay.
We'll see.
All right.
Just because I do take my car to a car wash doesn't mean that I wouldn't prefer to do it myself.
I will admit I'm that guy who will gas up his car at some weird place in the middle between San Francisco and Los Angeles, and I'll use the squeegee to wash more than just the windows.
Yeah, that guy.
I'm sorry. I am that guy. Folks, we know that this has been a lot of information, and we want to make it very easy for you to act on anything. If you want to know the links for any of the products that we talked about, if you want to find out the links for previous episodes where we talked about our networking, the topology, what you need to do is you need to go to our show notes. Megan, where are our show notes?
Twit.tv/knowhow.
Yeah, it's KH. Just go to KH. There you're going to find all of our back episodes, along with, this is important, the subscribe buttons. If you want to support the show, if you want to let us keep doing what we love to do, you can choose an audio version, a video version, or a high-definition video version and have it downloaded automatically into your device of choice. Share it with friends and show them that we like to play with weird things. That's kind of what we do. Also, don't forget, we're on the socials. Specifically, we're in Google+. In fact, that's where we pulled most of the questions for today's episode. If you want to be on the show, if you want us to answer your questions or maybe show off your projects, what you need to do is go to Google+, look for Know How, ask to join. I added a join process because we wanted to keep out all the spam accounts. But once you're in, you get access to almost 12,000 Kitas. Those are know-it-alls, people who are in every stage of their DIY maker journey. You can ask questions, answer questions, and just be part of a fun community. Yeah,
it is fun.
Of course, that's not the only place to find us. We do Twitters too, right? The tweeting thing.
Yep, I am at Megan Maroney on Twitter.
You're going to find me at PadreSJ, and you're going to find the third member of our group. We call him Sunshine. You can find Sunshine at twitter.com/ANELF.
Excuse me, Padre.
3.
That's Alex, and I'm $151.
Okay. And there we go.
This is Alex.
Oh, that's so sad. Wow. I will say this Alex is a lot happier than the other Alex.
Oh, he's just happy. This Alex is happy in his way, and we appreciate it.
Yeah. Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballasare.
And I'm Megan Maroney.
And now that you know how, go pressure wash it.